Hi everyone, so this video is on the writing of linear equations. If you're watching this video, you've probably graphed linear equations before, but now we're at the point where we're going to talk about how do we create those equations for ourselves. We should know that there are three versions of a linear equation. They all mean the same thing, but they tell us different information. The first is standard form. Now, we're not going to talk about that one in this video because it is impossible to write an equation directly into standard form. It has to come out of one of the other two. But just to review, standard form is the one where both variables x and y are on the left side, usually, and the right side is a constant. And that's the one with the special rules that the first coefficient has to be positive. There should be no common factors between the coefficients and the constant, and that they all must be integers. Again, that's just review. We're not going to use that form today. The other two, the main one is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is the place where the graph crosses the y-axis. And the other one is point-slope form. Point-slope form is a little bit different. It still has a slope in it, but instead of showing us a y-intercept, it shows us some other point on the line that we call x1, y1. So in this case, we don't see a nice y equals equation. We see y minus a y coordinate equal to m times the difference of the variable x and an x coordinate. Now, certainly you can turn point slope into slope-intercept form, and you certainly can turn slope-intercept into standard form, or vice versa. So it is rather easy to transfer between the forms of linear equations, but as I said, any transferring we do today will just be between point-slope and slope-intercept forms. Alright, so I want to start with a graph since, as I said, most of you probably have done graphing before, which is how you got here. If you're going to write the equation of a line from a graph, you need to identify your information that you are told from the graph first. So we know that if we have slope-intercept form, so I'm going to write the equation, y equals mx plus b. And we know that m is slope and b is intercept. Now, we should go and find the intercept first because that's the easier one to find. I look on the y-axis and I see it crosses the y-axis between -2 and -4. These lines all appear to be indicating one integer, so I can say my intercept is 0, -3. And the actual coordinate is the b. Okay? Let's talk about our slope. I want to pick another point that I definitely know the coordinates of. I don't want to be guessing here. So, looking at this, I think that I see another point that I can definitely identify the coordinates of. And that's all the way up here. And that's the point -5, +5. Now you can use the slope formula if you remember that, but since we have a graph, I'm just going to count it on the graph. I'm going to go down because I want to go from -5, 5 to 0, -3. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. And because I went down, my slope will be negative. The change in y is -8. Remember, slope is always change in y over change in x. I need to find my change in x now. So I need to go from here again over to 0, -3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my change in x is 5. The way that I do this, you will always go down if it's negative, up if it's positive, but you will never go over to the left. Okay? So you won't have to deal with double negatives. All right, and from there we just plug in our information that we have found to the equation. So we're going to say our slope is negative 8 over 5x plus negative 3. And certainly you can change that plus negative 3 to minus 3 if you like. And that's writing an equation from a graph. And like I said, for those of you that have graphed before, you know now if you were to go the other way what to do. You would locate the negative 3, you would use the negative 8, 5 to find a second point, and then you would connect your points to make that line. All right, so what I want to think about here, they ask for the equation in slope-intercept form, but what I want us to think about is what information are we given? See, that's what's really going to help us here in terms of how do we do this and what do we use. If we are given a slope and an intercept, it makes sense to go straight to slope-intercept form. So we would leave our y, our x, and then we would just plug in. We know that the y-intercept is 2, that's b, so I put it in where b goes. I know the slope is negative 1/5, that's m, and I put that in where m goes. And that's it. But what about the one on the right? I still have a slope, I still know what m is. But 2, 5 is just a random point. It's not an intercept. So in this one, I need to use point slope, because point slope, if you think about the name, tells us exactly what we were being asked to find. We were being asked to write an equation using a point and a slope, and that's what we've been given. So we know here that if we have this, we have a situation where the x coordinate we will call x1, the y coordinate we will call y1. When I write point slope form, I always leave in black the y, the minus signs, the equals, and the parentheses, because those are the things that are always part of point slope form. They never change. The y1, the m, and the x1 change depending on the information. All right, m goes in for, 3 goes in for m, and then 2 goes in for x1, and 5 for y1. Now, before we do the next part, I just want to say both of our coordinates here were positive. If they were negative, it would be double negative, so we would have to turn to addition. Okay, so like if the 5 was negative, we wouldn't leave it as y minus negative 5. We would say y plus 5. Okay, now I need to transfer to slope-intercept form. I need to solve it for y. It needs to be in y equals format. All right, to get the y by itself, I need to move the 5 over. So I'm going to plus 5 to both sides. But what I want you to notice is this parentheses does not go away. Now, certainly you can make the parentheses go away first before adding the 5. I have no preference. Sometimes I do it that way. Sometimes I do it this way. But either way, we know there's a constant inside the parentheses. We should use the distributive property so that we can get rid of that and combine our like terms. Remember that we cannot combine like terms until we have the parentheses taken care of. So we would do 3 times minus 2, which would be minus 6. We have our plus 5, and then we would combine our like terms. So we would have as our final equation y equals 3x, and then negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Okay? And again, that I was explaining each step and going slowly, so when you actually do it on your own, it will be faster. Right? The last thing I want to talk about is the equation of a line between 2 points. This is the one that students always have trouble with because there are a lot of different steps that all must be done in the right order or we won't get the right equation. we see here that we have 2 points, -3, 2, and -5, 0. So we know 2 points on our line. So I'm not going to use the purple because that's what we use for our intercept. We need a slope, and we know that from what we were talking about before, to do point slope, we just need a point. So that's all we need, because we have our point, we need our slope. So going over here on the left-hand side, we see step 1, find slope. So we'll use our slope equation. The way that I usually do this, I just call my first ordered pair x1, y1, and my second one x2, y2. So we're going to say 0 minus -2, okay, over, and then our x's, -5. Again, remember, -5 and 0 are an ordered pair, so when I look at where I find them in the equation, they should be one right on top of the other. So I'm going to do -5 minus -3, and see -3 and -2 are an ordered pair. They're right on top of each other. All right, and then I'm going to simplify. 0 minus -2 is 0 plus 2, or 2. 5 minus -3 becomes -5 plus 3. I get -2, and that reduces to -1. Step 2, fill in point slope form. Okay, y minus y1 equals m x minus x1, and then we'll fill in. So then we'll put our slope in, -1. Now for our ordered pairs, we can use either. Now there are many point slope forms depending on your line, because any point on that line can be put in to point slope form. So you can use -3, -2, or -5, 0. I'm going to use -5, 0. because it's easy to work with 0, because subtraction by 0 doesn't change anything. And I'm going to put in a -5 here. Okay? And again, as I said, you don't want double negatives, so you want to change that to an addition. Now, this is the proper point slope form, because point slope form must show the point. So we want to leave that -0 in there. But if I am going to go into slope intercept form, the 0 is helpful because it goes away. So to solve for y, I would just do y equals, and then I would distribute my -1. So I would get -x, or -1x, minus 5, and that's my slope intercept form. Okay? All right, why don't you hit pause and you try this one. All right, so then our final equation, if we went into slope intercept form, was y equals x plus 6. If we left it in point slope form, we would have y minus 2 equals 1, or you could have just left that as an empty space, x plus 4. If you had done the other point, you would have gotten y for the x2, y2, you would have gotten y minus 1 equals 1, or an empty space, x plus 5. So either of those two, and no matter what you did for your slope intercept, it would have been the y equals x plus 6. You started with the same known information, 2 points and a slope, and then you found the slope, filled in the point slope form, and solved for y to get slope intercept. Our last one here, we know something a little bit different. We do know 2 points, yes, and we still need a slope. However, what I want you to notice is that our second ordered pair, 0, -4, is an intercept. We know it's a y-intercept because x is 0, so we would not go anywhere on the x-axis, but we would go down to -4 on the y-axis. So we're going to find our slope, but we are actually going to skip step 2 because we can go right into slope-intercept form knowing the intercept. So we're going to do m equals, and we're going to do the same thing as before. That part doesn't change. So -3 is x1, 0 is x2, so it's going to be 0 minus -3. 3 is y1 and -4 is y2, so it's going to be -4 minus 3. And then we're going to go and do the subtraction, so we would get -4 minus 3 is -7 over 0 minus -3 is 0 plus 3, which is just +3. We're going to go straight to slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We have found our slope m is -7/3, and our intercept was given to us at -4. And again, you could leave that plus -4 or just -4. All right, that's it for the video on linear equations. Thanks for watching.